right. Okay. So. Hey. Okay. All right. Pearls. This way. So let's just go over this together because I'm not hearing a lot of good discussion in your group. What are these up here? Those are the viruses. Okay, those are the bacteriophages, the viruses that affect bacteria. One round of the experiment, they labeled sulfur, which is essentially labeling proteins. So all of the proteins in the virus are radioactive. In this half of the viruses, they use radioactive phosphorus, which tags the DNA, so all the DNA in the virus is radioactive. They let them infect the bacteria, they blend them apart, and when they look at the results, when they tag the protein, does the protein end up inside of the cell? No. When they tag the DNA, does the DNA end up in the cell? Yes. So what does that tell us? DNA is the molecule that transfers the genetic information, right? So DNA is holding our genetic information. So that's one of the experiments we talked about yesterday. Any questions on that before we move on today? Okay, take out your folders if you haven't already. Chapter 8, Part 1, pages 5 and 6.
Some kids stole my pencil.
Imagine having one pencil.
I have like 7. Imagine being short.
It's not even offensive.
It is though.
No, it's not. Being short has a lot of good qualities.
Right.
I'm the best at hide and seek.
I should. You don't fix your head on some things that tell people that they're head on.
I can fit in places.
Dude, if a tall person hits their head on something, it's just because their awareness sucks.
Yeah, I'm short and my awareness sucks too.
I run into things.
There's a lot of short people in the world, so we just fit indoors.
Anyway. All right.
We need to get rid of tall people because they don't fit.
But who plays sports?
Hey, raise your hand if you're here.
I play.
Raise your hand if you're here. You're not here yet. Don't raise your hand. Yeah, here, let's go.
Wait, raise your
I'm
hand.
14. I can't play big one.
Thank you. You can stand down.
Why'd you ask us to raise our hand?
Because you didn't have our stuff out yet.
Oh, yeah, only tall people play sports.
That's not true.
Besides basketball.
I play
Gymnastics.
I
Hello.
meant professional sports.
Gymnastics.
Do you know how tall Simone Biles is?
Anyways, moving on.
No, it's short.
We need to refocus here. I don't want to have to start like writing attention, really.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh my god. I never had it fun.
Well, so today we're talking about the structure of DNA. So there are some things here that we're going to go through in our notes, and then you'll have a Canvas quiz to make sure you have it down. So we actually mentioned this in class yesterday. We talked about the 4 macromolecules: carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, nucleic acids. DNA is an example of a nucleic acid. Ding, ding, ding. And a monomer of DNA is nucleotide. So when we look at a molecule of DNA, it's going to be made up of lots and lots of nucleotides. There's this picture in your notes. We're going to label the 3 parts. The first part is called a phosphate group. And so if you look really carefully, in the center of that phosphate group is a P, which stands for the atom or element phosphorus. And then it's surrounded by oxygen. So that's a phosphate group. phosphate group is connected to this pentagon shape, which is the sugar. So depending on which type of nucleic acid we have, that nucleotide is a different sugar. And this is where the names for these nucleic acids come from. So DNA is called deoxyribonucleic acid because the sugar in that case is a deoxyribose sugar. If this is a nucleotide in RNA, the sugar is ribose. Ribonucleic acid, that's where the name RNA comes from. So this part of the chapter it's gonna be DNA, so it's gonna be deoxyribose. Also attached to the sugar on the other side of it is a nitrogenous base, which usually we just say base. We leave out the nitrogen part. But it's called a nitrogenous base because what element do you see in that? Nitrogen. There's a nitrogen, there's a nitrogen, there's a nitrogen. And hydrogen and carbon. Like carbon's not shown here, but a lot of these are carbon atoms. So when we look at the entire DNA molecule, you're going to see this repeating unit of a phosphate and a sugar and a base, a phosphate, a sugar, and a base, phosphate, a sugar, and a base. And hopefully Monday after our test corrections, we get to an activity where we're going to build a model of this. And so when you build a nucleotide, you'll put a phosphate with a sugar and a sugar with a base. So we mentioned this already. But DNA actually has 4 different bases, A, T, C, and G. But just so you have the technical name for those, the C stands for cytosine and thymine and guanine and adenine. Notice they all end in INE. They have to do with the amine, the nitrogen groups that are hanging off of them. So, real quick in your groups, these 2 are considered to be pyrimidines, and these 2 are considered to be purines. So what's similar and different between these 2 groups? Why do you think these 2 are paired together and these 2 are paired together?
No, whatever, dude.
Yeah.
You know what?
Okay, so if you take a look at these top 2, they look kind of similar in a lot of ways. Some of the things sticking off are different, but you just have one ring, right? So these bases have one ring. These bases down here have 2 rings. So we know from Shargoff's data yesterday that actually A and T are going to pair together, and C and G are going to pair together. So it's always a single ring with a double ring or double ring with a. So we're going to talk about a couple more scientists who were essential to our understanding of the DNA structure. The first one is Rosalind Franklin. So she really did not get the credit she deserved for DNA structure, mostly because at the time she was a woman and it was really, her research was really taken advantage of. But she specialized in taking basically X-rays of molecules. We call it X-ray photography. And I can't really tell what this means, but if you took a class in X-ray crystallography, you would know that this tells us that DNA has a double helix shape. So thanks to her pictures that we were able to first see that DNA is a double helix. So take a look at this shape here. You kind of talk with your group. What does this shape look like to you? Besides DNA.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
It also looks like
It's
For you.
you're not I know, still.
You want to compare height?
You
You want to compare height?
That.
Yeah, so
Oh, it's just a poly.
Oh, go to the spiral staircase.
yeah, I think it kind of looks like I heard a couple different things from that. You took a ladder and you twisted it. That would give you a double helix looking structure, which is normally how we think of it, as kind of like a twisted ladder or a little bit like a spiral staircase. So these two strands are running parallel to each other, and they're just twisting as they go around. So that's what double helix means. That's what the shape is. So these are the two gentlemen that really get the credit for coming up with, or traditionally had the credit for coming up with this structure. And really it's a combination of work from people before them. So we just talked about Chargaff yesterday. What did Chargaff find out? A equals
T and G equals T.
yeah, you can flip-flop them, yeah. And we just figured out Franklin discovered that DNA was a double helix. And so they put that information together and they came up with of the model of what we now follow for DNA structure. I'll show you on the next slide. Something like this. Keep losing my eraser. So, sorry, this picture isn't exactly in your notes, but don't worry about taking notes on this. Just kind of look up here for a second. So there's a circle up here. If you look at this circle, what is it representing? Not just a base,
The 3 parts of a nucleus.
a whole nucleotide. So this is the nucleotide. The circle is the phosphate, and the pentagon is the sugar, and this is the base. Yeah. And so you can see here's another nucleotide, and here's another nucleotide, and here's another nucleotide. And across from it, here's a nucleotide, and here's a nucleotide, and here's a nucleotide. Okay. So a DNA molecule is made up of lots and lots of nucleotides that are in 2 different strands and connected by the bases, by their base pairs. Right? And you can see wherever there's an A, it's across from a T, and wherever there's a C, it's across from a G. We call the sides of the ladder the sugar phosphate backbone. So it goes sugar phosphate, sugar phosphate, sugar phosphate, sugar phosphate. That's the name, sugar phosphate backbone. Did you? Oh yeah. We're gonna do kind of a similar thing hopefully on Monday. And take this, yep. Yeah, we're not really gonna get to eat it at the end. Because there are restrictions that we. Okay, so this is the model that's in your notes on the next page. If you have to look there. And so there's a set of questions you're gonna go through with your group members. Just
No, you.
I mean, I'm so sorry.
I'm not even sure. If only someone who actually.
You're the shortest of the five.
I don't know about that. Look at her.
Okay, what is you?
We'll see.
Really, you don't know?
That right
It's
there,
phosphate,
right there.
sugar, base, and-
Oh. Yeah.
This kind of reminds me of tomatoes. Literally on your.
Yeah, the picture should help. If you don't remember it from our discussion, take a picture.
Yeah, she was just bullying her, so I have to give her that.
Yeah.
She was saying I wasn't funny.
You know who is the shortest in the class? Taylor. That's not very nice.
There's nothing wrong with being short.
Yes, there is.
You're probably gonna live longer.
That has nothing to do with it.
Are you supposed to stop?
Are you doing 1 and 2?
Yeah.
Why would I want to stop?
All of 1 and 2, not A and B.
Oh, 1, 2, oh, what whole thing?
See this number 1 and then number 2. Oh, she was distracted by one more time.
I thought you were talking about these two.
Yeah, that's right. All of
Wait,
them.
wait. Oh, sure. Okay. Oh, nitrogen base.
Your question can wait till. Is it these 4?
Oh, so.
Basics. Like this. Ladder model. I'm so upset. I'll figure it out.
Are you still?
At least you'll always lose at home.
Actually, I'm a hide and seek champ, so
I'm not in team chat.
hide and seek champ for Little League.
Oh, wait, no. It's about to do nitrogen bases.
There's all more.
And then I got the wrong.
I thought you put your feet on after climbing up the ladder.
Oh, look, you have yeah.
I don't climb ladders because you know top people don't need ladders.
You're not even that tall.
You want to stand side by side?
How tall are you?
How tall am I? About 6'2".
You keep changing it.
About 6'2".
You're not 6'2". I know someone who's.
All right. Let's go over those first 2 problems. If you're not done all the way yet, it's fine. So number 1A, the 3 parts of a nucleotide are the phosphate, sugar, yeah.
Containing base.
Yeah, you can just say phosphate, sugar, and base, and that's fine.
I wanted to be fancy.
Phosphate, sugar, and base. Because letter B then says what kind of sugar is found.
Deoxyribose.
Deoxyribose. Well, DNA is referring to like the whole molecule. So you really have to say deoxyribose. Yeah,
You didn't ask, you just said you said it wrong.
that's true.
See,
No, I meant before you said that. Be nice to each other.
It's not possible.
I like people to ask questions if they have questions.
Yeah, the shortest one there was obviously.
So, letter
Smarter than
C.
you.
Okay, seriously, guys. It's funny, but getting a little old. Okay. Letter C. The nucleotide component that contains the nitrogen is the base. The base, yeah. Or nitrogenous base. Okay.
I didn't have. I thought it was nitrogen. Nitrogen.
That's another way of saying it. Same thing. And then letter D, the 4 bases that are going to be our 4 base, like adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine, right? So hopefully that was pretty straightforward. If you take a look at our ladder model here, it asks you to circle a nucleotide on each side of the ladder. So remember, a nucleotide is made up of a sugar, our phosphate, a sugar, and a base. So here's a nucleotide here. Okay. So you could go through and you could circle all of them, really. Like each one of these is a nucleotide, right?
I don't want to.
Oh, I just circled it.
You only have to circle one. So hopefully you see that it's just a pattern of repeated nucleotides, right? Letter B, what parts of the nucleotide make up the rungs? This is where you stick your feet if you're climbing up the ladder. Yeah, Leo. Yep, the nitrogenous bases, A, T, C, and G. Then the part that make up the sides or the backbone then are the phosphates and the sugars, right? Phosphate, sugar, phosphate, sugar, phosphate, sugar, phosphate, sugar, and vice versa, phosphate. Letter D is a little tricky. It says look at the top and look at the bottom. Are the rungs parallel or anti-parallel? So if you look really closely on this side, notice what's sticking up here, the phosphate, and on the opposite side, it's facing down here. So DNA actually runs anti-parallel. So they're parallel from each other, but they're running in opposite directions. So on this side, the phosphate's at the top. On the opposite side, the phosphate's on the bottom. Okay, so DNA runs anti-parallel. So technically, if my bases are this, then this would be approximate. It would be like going upside down. You don't have to write it like that because it takes many years of practice. But that's
Climb a ladder.
well, you go up one side and down the other, right? So. Okay. All right, I'll give you a little bit of more time now. Try to finish up the rest of the questions there.
On this page.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
I don't think I have it.
I just.
I have like a little button one.
I think I have it.
I'm Gary.
I'm good at her.
And then I can do face.
So you're gonna leave.
No, that's how it is. Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, so you're labeling the ladder using the key here. So this is supposed to be a cytosine. And this is going to be thymine. This is going to be
This goes with this.
What's number 5? Would it be?
Number 5. Oh, so you have to look at the number of lines between the bases.
But it's different.
Well, all of the party games we have.
No.
1, 2, 3, and all 3. 1, 2, 3.
So 3 and then look in between the
Like,
thingies,
trying to make it feel
how many lines it has.
Oh,
like stuck in another 13.
Yeah, look in between A and C and C. That's how many lines it has. You call it block.
I forgot what you call it. There's 2 lines.
Oh, I'm not there yet.
Yeah. Yeah, so the bases are held together by hydrogen bonds. So you'll notice that there's 3 lines between each C and D. So 3 bonds between that and 2 bonds between A and P. Yeah.
Oh, here we go, number 8. They take turns on each side, obviously. Mine goes sneaky. Oh, it doesn't order. And then other side goes. Okay. So you like size and order. Interesting. Like for every, yeah, like a pair. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they put size and then they like. Why? And then it moves on to the next. Oh, it's all hard. If there's a group, then I just pretty good at it. So annoying, it's like, sorry, you don't know. Arrangement. It's CTAG. Oh.
You're reading a little too much into the pattern. It's just that every time you have a C, you have like a D part of it, right? And
Oh,
then a D after it. Like a chromosome is like thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of base pairs long.
All about that business.
Can we just go up until 10?
Yep.
Can you put them away now?
We're gonna go over it. Actually, let's go ahead and start going over it now because I want to give you some time to get your quiz done before you leave. So, Number 3, if you label them correctly, you should have ended up something like this. Anytime you have an adenine, what's across from it? A thymine. And they're connected by how many bonds? 2. So there's 2 hydrogen bonds between every 2 and T and A. Every time you have a cytosine, across from it is a guanine. And if you look closely, how many bonds are between those? 3. So 3 hydrogen bonds between every C and G. Number 8 is basically just the base pairing rule. So adenine always pairs with thymine, and cytosine always pairs with guanine. Okay, so that was supposed to be pretty simple. So if you have this on one side, the complementary strand is just going to be whatever matches with it. So what matches with A, and what matches with T, and what matches with C, and this is going to be A, and this is going to be A, and this is going to be A. So we call those complementary sequences. So whatever one strand is, the base pairs of that is going to be the complementary strand, complementary bases. And then we already kind of talked about number 10, but just like a twisted ladder, right? So double helix is just referring to the fact that they twist around each other. So do we feel pretty comfortable with everything on that? Okay, so go ahead and take out your Chromebook, see if you can, the quiz takes like 3 minutes. Just a reminder, you should retake these quizzes until you get like at least really, really close to 100%. Homework assignments are basically worth just as much as tests. So.
And so I'm just special. I'm special.
No, I've known her for a while.
No, she's just me.